Hello class, and welcome to Notes 3.7, Percent of Change. Our California standard for today is NS 1.6. Don't forget to write that standard down. Our objective is to solve problems with percent of increase or decrease. Percent of change is how much a quantity has increased or decreased from the original amount. And we have a formula for finding it. It says percent of change, which we use P percent as our symbol, equals new amount minus original amount over original amount. And a little trick we have for saying that is it would be NO. So NO over O. New minus original over original. Percent of increase is a percent of change when the new amount is greater than the original amount. And a percent of decrease is a percent of change when the new amount is less than the original amount. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first teacher example. A real estate agent sells 32 properties in 1 year. The next year, the agent sells 54 properties. Find the percent of increase. So this is nice. They already tell us it's an increase. And obviously, we can see that it is because the first year, she sold less than she did the second year. So, of course, we start out with our formula and plug in our numbers. P percent equals NO. New, which is the most recent amount, minus the original, which was what she sold first, over the original. Then we simply subtract and we'll have a fraction. Now, they want us to find the percent of increase. So our final answer should be a percent, not a fraction. So we can simplify that fraction so the numbers are easier to work with. And then divide. I end up with a decimal. And of course, to turn that decimal into a percent, I need to move my decimal point 2 places to the right. And I can include my words. So that percent of increase is 68 75/100%. Now, a little trick for this, because we know it's an increase, we should end up with a positive percent. If we end up with a negative percent, that means we did something wrong. So let's take a look at teacher example 2. In 2000, a town's population was 1,260. In 2006, the population was 1,050. What was the percent of decrease in the town's population? So as you can see, the population got smaller, so this is where we should end up with a negative. And again, a nice easy way of checking your work is if you don't have a negative, you know you did something wrong. So, after writing down our formula, we plug in our numbers. We start with the new, which was the current in the 2006, the population, 1,050. And we subtract the original, 1,260 over 1,260. So you go ahead and do that subtraction. Notice we get a negative answer. That means we did it right. Anytime we're looking for a discount, we should have that negative there, as I've said before. Simplifying our fractions so they're easier numbers to work with. Then we can turn into a decimal by dividing. Remember, this says negative 1 over 6, which is the same thing as saying negative 1 divided by 6. Denominator, as you know, goes on the outside of the division sign. Numerator goes on the inside, and we'll end up here. And we still have our negative. Now, we've turned our decimal into a percent. And then the final part, and this is the part that's a little tricky. You want to make sure you're paying attention. When you say that it's a discount, because you're already using that word discount, that's the negative. So you don't actually need to write the negative. You actually don't write the negative. So you simply say it was a discount of 16 67/100%. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're real careful there. When you say decrease, that's like saying negative. It's the same thing. So go ahead and try these out. Again, remember, if it's a decrease, you're going to have your final answer will be a positive number. Go ahead and pause the video, press play when you're ready to see the answers. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look. Hopefully you start with your formula. NO, 60 minus 80 over 80. That becomes 20 over 80, or 2 over 8, or negative 1 over 4. Again, remembering that negative sign. Right away, when you see that negative sign, you know it's going to end up being a decrease. Turn it into a decimal, and we get negative 25/100, which is a 25% decrease. Notice again, since I said the word decrease, I don't need my negative. Okay, same thing here. You're going to go ahead and subtract. This time you end up with a positive number. So right away you know it is going to be an increase. And then I can simplify my fraction or simply divide. It doesn't matter, whichever you prefer. And end up with 6/10, which when I move my decimal 2 places to the right, I'm going to end up with 60% increase. Number 3, again, you're doing that subtraction. Notice you end up with a positive number, so you know it is going to be a increase. Then we just divide 16 divided by 48, and we end up with 0 and 3/10 repeating. So 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Notice I just wrote 3 of them because you only need 3 of them when you turn it into a percent, which would be 33 and 3/10%. And of course I need that word increase. Okay, let's take a look at teacher example 3. 2 years ago, your savings account balance was $492.19. Since then, the balance has increased 32 and 6/10%. What is the current balance? So be careful. This is a little different. Now we don't have the original and the new amount. So we don't need to use our NOO formula. We actually can't. What we need to do is find out what 32 and 6/10% of 492.19 is. So I write it out. And of course I need to turn my percent into a decimal, moving 2 to the left like Beyonce. And then of tells me to multiply. Then I go ahead and do that multiplication and I come up with my answer. And now, notice it says it was an increase, so the balance increased. So it started here and increased by this much more. So you end up with 652 and 64 hundredths, which of course we need to write with money, $652.64. Okay, go ahead, let's have you try this on your own. Student practice 3. We've got a decrease and we have an increase. Go ahead and solve, find your answer, press play when you're ready to see. Okay, let's take a look and see how you did. 15% of 14,500 is, you need to of course turn it into a decimal and multiply, and you end up with 2,175. Since they do say it's a decrease, that means we are subtracting, and we end up with 12,325. Next problem, we've got 8,500 increased by 32 and 5/10%. So right away when you see that word increase, you know you're going to be adding. And you go ahead, turn that into multiplication with a decimal. You end up with, and I have a subtraction sign there, that should be addition. I end up with 2,762 and 5/10, and I add those two together, and I end up with $11,262.50. Okay, let's have you go ahead and try these out on your own. Find the percent of change. The first one, 360 pounds to 352 pounds. You want to decide if you're decreasing or increasing. Notice there's a note at the bottom. Remember, do not write the negative if it already says decrease. So if it's a decreasing one, you will have a negative. You don't write it because it's a decrease. The problem 2 and 3, you find the new amount. 65% is decreased by 30%, and 8 is increased by 60%. Okay, so go ahead and take a look, and have a great day.